Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with Glenn Akramoff. Now, Glenn is the CEO and founder of Akramoff. By the way, I've said to Glenn that what a great name he was gifted with. Akramoff sounds like I really want to know what Akramoff thinks. It's such a powerful name. Akramoff makes the world a brighter place by providing workers fulfilling professional lives. They revitalize businesses, empower workers, and inspire positive workplace change and various workplace rehab services. Their goal is to help organizations lead their teams with a shared vision and purpose for optimal performance. So Glenn is really an expert on reimagining workplaces. He is a workplace consultant, and the stuff we're going to cover today is that we've talked about it in the past, but there are some new exciting revelations here. Glenn's book is out. So we'll talk more about kind of what's in that topic, but we'll also kind of talk about what the state of the business is and really kind of what he's seeing out there in the marketplace. But Glenn, let's start with the most timely stuff, the book. Tell me more about the launch of the book and tell me where things are with that.
Sure. It's been exciting. Of course, I think all of us believe we have a book in us, and I did, and I got to do that process. Took us about a year. It's been out a little bit. It's been out most of the year. It's going well. We get a lot of great feedback about it. It's called The Human-Centered Team, and we wanted to focus on basically our work. And the key part of it, I think, is I wanted to make it very practical. The theories are out there, and I go by a lot of the theories that people talk about, but I wanted to be able to help people implement those theories. And I told one of the things I was surprised by is it became very personal. I shared a lot of personal stories on how I learned these lessons. And so it's been a lot of fun to do. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And now I also have a tool to use in my business.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit more about that. The human-centered team. Tell me more about the philosophy that you're outlining there and really how you're putting into practice right now.
Sure. So what the program that I developed over my career breaks down into a couple of different categories. One is we call them the pillars of workplace health. And so there's 6 of them. There's culture, of course, that's number 1. Structure. The third one is processes. 4th one is systems. 6th is external forces. Or the 5th is external forces. The 6th is KPIs or your analytics. All of them create a excellent workplace. We start with culture, of course. And to us, that changes with each human being. Each place is different. So you want to have a solid culture and some ground rules. That's the big thing. So then the second part of the book is about how you build that team. And we talk about the keys to building a winning team. There are 8 of them. I won't go over all of them, but
no, I got to read the book, got to buy it. But tell us the juicy bits. Tell us some of the good ones.
Right, but I think that there's a couple that always come to mind that people have really said they enjoyed. The first one is purpose. It's called aligning purpose. You need to align your company's purpose with your individual purpose, and that's how you build a winning team. And it really talks to what we see out in the workplace today. The happiest, best employees are living their purpose at work. And they align. So we talk a lot about that. And then the second one that everyone really enjoys is what we call the performance flow, knowing your performance flow. And that philosophy is about understanding that we as human beings all have a cycle that we go by in our workplace and how we perform, and helping understand what that is and how to utilize it in a team environment is incredibly important. So those are the 2 big ones that really resonate with everybody. There's the other 6 are actually just as important, but
So it's been an interesting moment that we've been living through again, Glenn, with work environments. And I'd just be curious to kind of get your take on what's the temperature right now in terms of the working world, the working structures. Are we highlighting, I don't know, just from the basic stuff, are we finding that this kind of more flexible, fluid structures that we have now, is that where things are going to stay? Or are we going to find ourselves in a situation where we'll flow back into the old structures? What are you seeing out there?
Well, I think the key theme is the fact that we as human beings need to be connected.
Mm,
And a lot of that connection comes in person. And
mm,
so people are, it's the reason people didn't go to the hybrid workplace before COVID was because they were afraid of a lack of accountability. There is some of that, right? It's really exposed poor managers and their micromanaging and that sort of stuff because it's much harder to do, right? From a screen. But what's really happening is people are craving that connection. So they're coming back into the workplace out of choice. Now, the people who are making them, I think, are making a mistake.
right.
They will come back out of choice, not every day. I think the hybrid workplace, especially in many industries, is here to stay and should be. I've been a proponent of it for over 10 years, so I believe in it. But we also know that the team has to be built in the same space at times,
Mm,
and we as human beings need to be in that, have that connection. So I see that as a trend. I that is where I get a lot of questions and a lot of work, is people saying, well, how do I do that? How do I build my team on 2 days a week when everybody's in the office, or even 1 day a week, or six
yeah.
hours or whatever? And I think that's our dilemma right now. That's what we need to work on. And there are plenty of ways to do it. And the way we used to do it pre-COVID doesn't work anymore. We also know, I think that the second trend that I think is incredibly important is our generations are changing in the workplace.
Hmm.
Millennials are now fully engaged in the workplace. They are now becoming leaders in the workplace,
Yeah.
and they lead differently, as they should.
Yeah.
And then they're starting to lead the Gen Zers, who are totally different. They are much more, actually, what I find is they're much more reflective of the baby boomer generation in many ways, because they have gone through some crisis, right? Maybe not
Yeah.
a world war, but they've gone through a lot of change and crisis, and they have a different, definitely totally different than millennials.
Well, I was
So
going to kind of ask about that because it's not just the pandemic, but I mean, we have lived through and we are living through a difficult economic cycle.
yeah,
And I kind of sometimes find that the goodness of some of these trends that we see where companies make some really good strides in terms of aligning around mission and goals and culture sometimes kind of fall off the rails actually in tough economic moments. And I'd be curious to kind of see what you're seeing out there in that kind of relationship.
yeah, I think that's true. I've seen its impact in my business.
Yeah.
Be truthful about it. We are slower because people see it as, and I had someone tell me this, a marketing person I was talking to. They said, well, I see your business as optional, right? It's a love to, but not a need to. And I think that's the challenge, is that you can no longer, with the two generations we have that are starting to dominate the workplace, they want purpose. They want to make sure they feel valued. And when they don't, they've talked a lot about ghosting you. They're going to leave. And they
Yeah.
are. They are. And so that's where I get the calls. People are panicking. I got a 50% turnover rate in the last 6 months. What's going on? That's what it is you're seeing that their mental health, and you're focused on your bottom line, which again, you have to, right? That's why you're
Right.
in business. But they will, people have not realized yet that that will feed their bottom line to make sure their employees are healthy and happy.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't translated fully. And like you said, when you've got to make tough financial choices, that's where they're giving on, is fixing those things, which in my mind is the opposite approach. Because if you've got to reduce your staff, which is your number one cost,
Right.
and you've got to reduce it, and in reality, in these tough times, you need to, you're asking the people who are there to do more, and they need to be happier and have more energy and more enthusiasm to do so. And the only way you do that is to make sure your culture is right and make sure they're getting fed.
There was a whole bunch of studies done, and then it's now probably like, it's pre-COVID studies that were talking about that kind of, I guess, employee disconnect in a way. They were kind of more and more disconnected from the places that they were working at. Are we seeing that companies now are implementing things that re-engage that connection in a positive way? And what are those?
Yeah, some are, but you also hear about they say it's a new trend where basically you slow down your work. The trend's not coming to me, but we're quiet quitting. That's what they call it, where you quit
Right.
on the job. That's been going on for 100 years. That's not a new trend. It's just we got a new name for it. So
A very good name.
I think so. I think it's going to help, actually. I think it's a positive. But I would say that how you fix those things, and our companies doing it, the good ones and the ones who are starting to dominate their market are.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is it's not about parties, it's not about, lavish things. It's about giving people, I use the word empowerment, but that's another trendy word, right? But they allow their people to have say so.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that each of these employees, each of us, have a purpose to serve. They try to find out what that is and connect it to their own company purpose. And so I talk about that in the book, but that's what the companies who are starting to dominate are doing.
Yeah.
And they're getting the quality young employees and keeping them. And they're going to hoard them if we all don't make the changes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we see lots of interesting workplace challenges. I think probably one of the ones that garnered a lot of focus over the last couple of weeks was this OpenAI implosion. And it was one of those moments where on every level of work it hit, right? It showed a level of debate and dysfunction on a board with their leadership, and then the power of the employees to really kind of basically flip the switch and say, wait a minute, folks, if you want us to stick around, we don't like what we're seeing here. What do you make of that example?
Well, I think it's, first of all, I think that's going to become a trend. If people aren't listening, right, you're going to do that. So I think really what it does is the millennial generations are activists, right? That's what they do. So when you have these things, they are not shy about jumping up and saying, wait a minute, that's not fair, that's not right.
Right.
And both my kids are millennials, so we've had a lot of discussions around this sort of thing. But I also think the other part is that it is generational. Because when I started, and probably you, we were told how to do things, we followed the rules, we knew that could lead to success, and we followed them, and we didn't question what things were and how they operated until we got in a place of where we could be a decision maker and make those decisions and change them.
Right.
The millennials don't wait. They're not waiting for that. They saw how we suffered, right? Our kids saw how we struggled with that process and how long it took, and they're just not willing to do it. So I think I've been saying for a long time that I applaud the millennials for doing that.
I think in that particular case, it was almost critical. I think for folks that were watching this, we were gobsmacked that a company, I don't remember how many billions of dollars they were valued at, 90 billion or 60 billion, but a company that pretty much had gathered together, collected so much talent on the most critical discussion today, which is AI, generative learning and machine learning. And that it was almost like at this moment where they were going to like let that evaporate overnight.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think all of us were like, who are their investors that are allowing this to happen? Like, it's crazy.
Right.
And I think that the employees were like, wait a minute, we joined this company, we have our stock options, we have our whatever, what are you guys doing? So I thought it was a really interesting one.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, I think some of the peculiarities of how that board was operating and what they really saw their role as was perhaps not kind of to protect shareholders, but to, seems to be like protect humanity somehow. Maybe they didn't see themselves as aligned with the company. Right. Anyway, I'm excited about the Netflix movie that will come out for sure. That will
in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, that will come out on this one for sure. And Glenn, I'm sure they'll hire you as a consultant to outline like exactly what's going on here. We've been talking about all the stuff that's happening at the present. 2024 is right around the corner now, Glenn. What's in store for us in 2024?
Well, I think these the things we've been talking about will continue. I think one of the trends that you see is that in an election year, a major election year, the economy tends to bounce up and do positive for a while. So I think
the
we're
Olympic year as well.
So, right. Yeah, so we got a double header, right? So I think we're going to see that happen. Things loosen up and businesses be able to start looking into off of the CEOs, right? They've been struggling with all of these tough issues. So I think they're going to be able to relax a little bit and start looking at things in a different light. And I think as a society, we're finally going to be released from COVID as far as the lockdowns and all the repercussions, because the economy was triggered by what we got. And so, yes, I'm very positive about it. That's kind of the way I look at things. But I think people's attitudes are really changing. And I'm a big believer that if we all change our attitude, we can actually change the way things operate. And I think we're going to see some of those trends. We're also going to see our frontline employees, but also our society in general, to expect more of people themselves, as well as the politicians and their businesses and their workplaces. And I think that's a positive. Expectations go up, then performance goes up.
Well, I'm excited about what we find next year, Glenn. Thank you so much for being on the Uncaged show today. We've been speaking with Glenn Akramoff. He is the CEO and founder of Akramoff, which makes the world a brighter place by providing workers fulfilling professional lives. He is an expert on reimagining workplaces and really helping workplaces work more effectively. He is now an author. Go check out his book. Glenn, if someone wanted to reach you, where's the best place to find out about you and your book?
You can find me at akramoff.com. We're on LinkedIn, and our book is at humancenteredbook.com. It's also on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it.